So we're going to start with some coding challenges with functions and loops, and go ahead and for each of these, go ahead and save them in your Visual Studio. We'll push those to the GitHub repository so you guys have the code to look at, as well as some functions with loops that are already built. Let's get started. Okay, let's see. So create a function called divisible by 10. Takes a parameter nums. Okay. And then it says return the amount of numbers in a list that are divisible by 10. So for each number in nums, if number is, how about this, not equal to, let's just, if the number divided by 10, okay, is not equal to 0. How about this? Okay, then how about we take nums and we remove, okay, the number. Simple enough. And let's take a look when we return nums. So I can comment this. And let's run this. And it says it should have returned 3. So what we should have returned was the length of nums. Oddly enough. And divisible by 10, 25, 35 should have returned 0, and it returned 1. Interesting. If it's not, if modulo 10 is not equal to 0, if it is equal to 0, no, if, so actually, what I did was I said, okay, remove everything divisible by 10 by putting this, so I could put if it's greater than 0, right? If modulus 10 is greater than 0, then remove, right? Greater than 0. So if modulus 1, then it should be nums.remove number. Then give me the length of nums. Should have returned 0 and returned 1. So this is another unit test they're doing because there's no... So this should not have returned anything. So 25 modulo 10, okay, if that is greater than 0, then remove that number. So let's do it a different way. Let's say if it's equal to 10, then we don't have to remove it. We can create a new list. We can create my list is equal to nothing. And then what we can do is instead we can append nums. Okay. And instead of adding it to nums, we can just add it to my list. And then we can return the length of my list. So instead of removing everything out of the list that isn't divisible by 10, we're creating a new list, and we're adding everything that is divisible by 10 to that list, and then we're returning the length of the list. Which, honestly, if you look at this, what we want to do is actually we want to just shrink that list, right? Return the amount of numbers in that list that are divisible by 10. So we did this by creating a fake list. And I feel like that is not the best way to do this. We don't want to create an empty array or empty list. But for each number in nums, if the number divided by 10 is equal to 0, then I would say continue, right? And then maybe you could else it to say, okay, if it's not, then number, so nums.remove number, and then you can return the length of nums. And let's see if that gives us the answer. It also gives us the answer. Okay. So so I guess that's different, two different ways that this can be done. So go ahead, you can copy this and save it in your Visual Studio. Moving on next, greetings. So we're going to create a function called add greetings, which takes a parameter names, and then in the function create an empty list. Okay, and we're going to call the empty list greetings, and there's an empty list. It'll contain each greeting, and so we want to add hello in front of each greeting. So for name and names, the list names, we want to take greetings and we want to append, and I spelled greetings right? Yep. And we want to append the message hello, comma, space, quotation, plus the name. Okay, and then we probably want to return greetings back out, I'm assuming. Return the new list containing the greetings. Yeah, so and it might be list greetings. So let's go ahead and look at our test. And our test passes. And moving on to the next one. Delete starting even numbers. Write a function called delete starting evens. All right. And it takes a parameter called list. And the function should remove elements from the front of the list until the front of the list is not even. The function should then return list. For example, if list started as 4, 8, 10, 11, 12, 15, then delete starting evens. List should return 11, 12, 15. Make sure your function works even if every element in the list is even. Okay, so this is a badly worded lesson here. Write a function called the function should remove elements. Okay, so let's do this first. We know that there's going to be a condition, right? So we know while the length of the list is greater than 0. Okay. And what I mean by that is if we take a look at this list, we're going to be if all of these numbers are even, okay, then the length of the list, we're going to start removing these numbers. And eventually the length of the list will get to 0. And then we should just return that list. So let's get out of our loop statement and let's write our return statement. We know we're going to have to return list, right? Let's get back to our while statement. Okay, and if we look, so until the front of the list is not even. Okay, so it wants to find the first odd number. So we have to put a second condition in here that says, okay, and if the first item of the list, okay, the first item of the list, okay, modulus 2, okay, is equal to 0, meaning it's even. So this says if the length of the list is greater than 0, meaning I have something in my list, and the very first thing of that list is divisible by 2 with a remainder of 0, I know it's an even number, I don't want it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the list and I'm going to slice off the first piece of the list. So we're going to slice off from the first piece to, and we're going to leave the rest of the list. So the 1 colon no number, no integer means from 1 to the end of the list. So it will slice off 0 and it'll keep 1. So in our list here, 0 is 4. So the first time that this goes around, it will cut 4. It'll slice at 4, but it'll keep 8, 10, 11, 12, and 15. Then the second time that it loops around, because again, the length is greater than 0. The length here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The first time it goes around, it deletes the 4, and then the length of the list becomes 5, which is true. And then we divide by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4, which has no remainder. So then it comes down here, and we're like, okay, we'll slice off this piece, and then move on to the next one, and then slice off this piece. And then this condition is false. And remember, if we have a true and a false, the whole statement's false. So it'll skip this and just return the list. So let's